Welcome to First Christian Church, Paris, Kentucky, Worship and Wonder. Today, I will greet you with, "The Lord be with you," and you will respond, "and also with you." The Lord be with you, and also with you. We say that every Sunday, but maybe we don't really know what it means. So what I'm saying is when I'm greeting you is I'm hoping that the Lord is with you. And then you in response are saying to me, "Hey, I hope the Lord is with you too, Miss Kay." So the Lord be with you and also with you. It's our greeting. We're going to get ready for our story. Our story is very good today, and again, it takes place in the desert, but we will start out by singing our song that prepares us for our quiet time and worship time. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Like I said, today's story also takes place in the desert. Lots of very important things in the Bible took place in the desert, so that's why we have a piece of the desert here in our room, so that we can talk about the desert. And the desert is really kind of a wow place, because in the day it's so hot that the sand will burn your feet. But then at night it gets really cold and you need heavy blankets. There's hardly no water in the desert. And when the wind blows, it blows the sand in one formation, and then tomorrow it may blow it all over here. So it changes daily. So the desert is a very wild, mysterious type of area. God loved his people so much that he gave them the best ways to live, the 10 best ways to live. And the people appreciated them so much that they kept them in a box and then inside of a protective, what we call an ark. So inside of the ark is the 10 best ways to live. They also, because they moved from place to place, had to be able to carry them. So they have little wooden pieces on each side. So you would have gentlemen or ladies carrying here and people carrying here. And when they relocated, they could take the ark with them. At last, God had gotten the people to the promised land. In the past few Sundays, they've been traveling to get to this promised land, and God's people are so appreciative that finally they've made it there. But they were surprised to find out in this promised land, those people weren't real happy to see them there. So they had some words. Now this ark was kept in a tent. Now this doesn't look like any tent that we have where we go camping, but their tents were very temporary and very special, and they were places to go and pray. And they kept this ark in the separate room of the tent, all by itself. In the front part of the tent were various pieces that were used in their worship. They had a place for offering. They had a place out front for washing their hands. They had a menorah, which is basically a candelabra. All of these things, they had a shoebread table. And these items were all used in part of their worship. And they cover it with cloth. And then when they got ready to move to the next location, they would take their tent apart and move it with them. Well, these people I was talking about that got very angry about the God's people moving into the promised land, they managed to steal the ark and take it away, which was very frustrating and very saddening to the people who finally had gotten to the promised land. This was not expected, but they knew God had led them here for a reason. And several years went by, and then there was a King David, who was a leader for God's people. And he took over and ruled Jerusalem. This will be our Jerusalem. And when King David, he was also one of God's people. So he had this wonderful, wonderful house. It was a palace. It had many, many rooms, all kinds of decorations. It was just a lovely, lovely home. But King David got to feeling kind of guilty because he had a fancy house, but their place of worship was a tent. He went out in his accomplishments in the lands of trying to make this a better place for God's people. And in his travels and in his battles, he found the ark that contained the 10 best practices. Well, after he found that, he placed it in the Holy of Holies room of the tent as it had been before. God's people were so excited. But King David was still concerned because he had this wonderful home, but God's words were kept in a tent. So he decided he would build a house for God. But God had another plan. God said, "No, King David, your son will build a house for God, a house for me." King David didn't understand, but he trusted in God. And later he had a son named Solomon. Solomon became king, and sure enough, he started making plans to build a temple in Jerusalem for worship. This temple, very much like the tent, would have an area for all their items of worship, but there would be a special room. It's called the Holy of Holies, for which the ark would be kept. It took many years to build this temple. And once they got it built, they moved all of the items from the tent that would be used in their worship over to the temple. So many beautiful things. It took a long time to move everything. It took a long time to build the temple. But the people were very proud of their temple and their ark and their 10 best practices. This was all built in the town of Jerusalem. But you know, if you went to Jerusalem today, you wouldn't find the temple. You wouldn't find the items of worship. You actually wouldn't even find the ark. So, what makes a holy place today? What makes a holy place today is where we keep our 10 best practices. We can keep our 10 best practices in our heart, in our mind, in our way of life. We don't have to have a temple. We don't have to have a tent. We keep those in our heart because we do trust in God. This is when we wonder about some parts of the story. I wonder how those people felt when they finally got to the promised land. They've been on a long journey. If you've been in joined Worship and Wonder in the last few Sundays, you've heard some of the obstacles they had to overcome to get to the promised land. And they were finally there. Wonder how that felt. I wonder what it felt like to build a temple. I wonder how they went about it. They didn't have all the tools that we have now. They didn't have the technology to do the plans. They didn't have the drills and the saws they did everything by hand. In fact, it probably took 100 years to build one temple. And we can't imagine taking 100 years to build one house. I just wonder how those people, how they felt about that. I wonder how it feels to know that if you live in Jerusalem today, to know that all this was there at one time. And over the years, hundreds and hundreds of years, it is all no longer there. It has crumbled or passed away. This is a very appropriate lesson today because some of us, we can't be in Worship and Wonder. We can't be in our temple or our church right now. We have to have guidelines for protection, for safety, for everybody to stay healthy. So we can do that. We can do our worship in any place. We can do it while we're camping somewhere, or we could do it in our living room, or we can worship when we're in our, and I have no idea where some of you are right now as you're watching this. But you are worshiping your God and remembering His best practices. Now, I'm going to put all of our items away so we can find them for the next time we have a lesson. Okay, our activity today to go along with our story about the temple and the places of worship. You need 3 plastic spoons, okay? We've got 3 spoons, and one has a T in it, one has an S in it, and one has a P in it. These are just cheap little old throwaway spoons, and you can write right in the center of them, and you say, what is that going to be? When we talk about worship, sometimes we talk about with prayer and talking to God, we think, I can remember thinking, what do I need to talk to God about today? We just naturally talk to them, and it becomes more comfortable the more we do talk with God. But if you don't know what to talk to God about, use TSP. The T means we're going to thank God for something. When we go to Him in prayer, let's thank Him for something. I would thank Him for the love that I'm receiving during these hard times from family and friends. Maybe you want to be thankful for the weather, or your soccer game, or your soccer coach maybe. But thank God for something. That will be our T. Our S is when we tell God, I'm sorry for something. And everyone, mom, dad, grown-ups, our minister, everyone has something in their life that they need to tell God, I'm sorry. You might say, I'm sorry I said those things to mom. Or I'm sorry that I reacted the way I did with my sister. Whatever there is, you can tell God, I'm sorry. He likes to hear that. And the last one, the P is for please. You ask God, please, can I, or please help make my sister better, or help her get over her cold, or please help mommy feel better from her headache, or please let us get back in school so we can see our teachers and friends every day and not just virtually. I find this little activity kind of helpful, and you can even turn it into a game. If you're wanting to have your worship time, like we said, you can have it anywhere, your bedroom, wherever. Just lay your spoons down, okay? And pick one up. And I just picked up a T. So what's that mean? Right, I'm going to say a prayer of thanks, which is very appropriate right now. Coming up on Thanksgiving, we spend a lot of time thinking about the things we're thankful for. So if you'll just keep your spoons laying around, and remember when you're saying your prayers, say a prayer for each one of your TSPs. Okay? Okay, now we're going to get ready for our feast time, which I know is one of the favorite times for some of you. So what you need to do is push the pause button, and when you come back, if you'll push the start button, we'll still be right here and we'll be having our feast together. Now the reason you're pushing the pause is to go get something for your feast. You can use water, you can use juice, whatever is available, whatever is okay by your parents. Cracker, get something to eat and something to drink, just like we're having in here. Miss Kay's gonna have water today and a cookie. So push your button. Okay, glad you're back. Hope you're ready to have a feast. I don't know, I didn't tell you to get a napkin, but if you did, that's great because you remember how it goes. If not, you can just lay it on the table. But here when we're here in Worship and Wonder, we use our napkin for our table. And then we have our drink and we have our food. And at this time is when we thank God and remember Christ died for us. Christ is there for us no matter what. We can always go to Christ in prayer. I can thank him for the graham crackers too. They're pretty good. And then we have our drink. And our memories. This is when we are appreciative, thankful, and remember that God loves us. God already knows all the things that we're telling him. He just likes for us to tell him too. It's always good to hear that. So now we'll get ready for a reading of our Bible. We have to clean up from our feast time. Kay didn't eat all of her cookie, so she'll keep the crumbs like this and lay our feast to the side. Now make sure, just because you're at home and not here at church, remember you still have to clean up. So clean up your mess from your feast, okay? We'll get ready for the reading of our Bible. Remember, we always say our lessons that we have in Worship and Wonder, they're not stories that are written or made up by somebody. These stories are actually in our Bibles. First thing we're going to do is light our Christ candle to remind us that Christ is in the room with us. I find the flame of a candle very calming, which also helps with my preparations for reading of the Bible. Today's lesson on the building of the temple, the house for God. The reading is in 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter, verses 1 through 11. Then Solomon said, remember Solomon? Then Solomon said, the Lord has said that he would reside in thick darkness. I have built you an exalted house, a place for you to reside forever. Then the king turned around and blessed all the assembly of Israel, while all the assembly of Israel stood. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who with his hand has fulfilled what he promised with his mouth to my father David, saying, Since the day that I brought my people out of the land of Egypt, I have not chosen a city from any of the tribes of Israel in which to build a house, so that my name might be there. And I chose no one as ruler over my people, Israel. But I have chosen Jerusalem, that was the town we went to today, in order that my name may be there. And I have chosen David to be over my people. My father David had it in mind to build a house for the name of the Lord, in the name of the Lord. But the Lord said to my father David, You did well to consider building a house for my name. Nevertheless, you shall not build the house, but your son, who shall be born to you, shall build the house for my name. Now the Lord was fulfilled with his promise that he made. For I have succeeded my father, David, and sit on the throne of Israel, as the Lord promised, and I have built a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. There I have set the ark, in which is covenant of the Lord that he made with the people of Israel. Bless the reading of his word. Now we've come to the time in our lesson, our service, when we change the light from one spot to throughout. The smoke from the candle will go with us. It's with you there as you're watching. And remember, God goes with you throughout your travels every day. Let's now close with the Lord's Prayer. Bow our heads, please. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Hope you have a blessed week. And remember, you can pray wherever God is with you.